Thank you, Chairman Newhouse. I'm glad you're holding this important forum today, and I thank our witnesses for participating. The skyrocketing energy prices we've seen under this administration should serve as a reality check that anti-American energy policies and out-of-control spending habits have consequences that are burdening the American people. Just the other week, I polled 26,000 of my constituents about whether rising energy costs are impacting their households. Unfortunately, but not unsurprisingly, the overwhelming answer was yes. More than 86% of the respondents say they're paying a lot more to heat their homes and fill their cars. I've also heard from local elected officials. Here's an excerpt from a letter that I had received from a local mayor from Lyndhurst, Ohio. Many have seen their natural gas budget nearly triple. A less painful rise in their electric costs has been noticed as well. For those driving, there's an added burden of what they must pay at the pump, which again is rising out of control. These impacts are not confined to the energy the residents personally consume, but to everything they need to live, all of which, even if it is unattainable, costs more than it did just 1 year ago. Residents are distraught over the negative impact these rising costs are having on their lives and upon the outlook for their future. We need help. Congress needs to answer that call for help. But the reality is that we can't if the president continues to cancel leases for domestic energy production, kill American pipelines and the jobs they provide, and propose high taxes on oil and gas production here in the US, all while empowering foreign pipelines. One of the many lessons we've learned from COVID-19 pandemic is that we cannot rely on other countries for our critical resources. As a ranking member of the House Interior Appropriations Subcommittee for the past 3 years, I've had and continue to have concern regarding the misguided efforts of my Democratic colleagues to curtail our nation's energy independence by limiting conventional energy development. So I'd like to pose this question to our witnesses. Can you please speak to how America's domestic energy and mineral production can help us transition to a cleaner energy future while keeping prices affordable for American families?
I'm happy to start on that. I think, if I can speak specifically from the services sector that I represent, a lot of the low carbon technology comes from the oilfield service providers. A lot of the methane detection, remote automation, everything that makes energy produced in a cleaner, more efficient way, a lot of that technology comes from our sector. And so that's why this industry, the traditional oil and gas industry, has to be the one to lead the way towards environmental goals. And a huge part of that we haven't really discussed yet that I wanted to make sure we did is the workforce piece. With the vilification of our industry that comes from this administration, we are at a war for talent. We're competing against other industries for the highly technical, skilled people that we need to come up with these technologies that are going to achieve environmental goals. So to your question, I would say, cleaner energy starts with us. It doesn't start in Silicon Valley. It starts with the people that understand scale and global demand. And we feel that we can deliver and that we haven't given up too early per the last question.
Well, and I would add that natural gas is the #1 reason the United States has reduced more greenhouse gas emissions than any other country. When we make it more difficult to produce American natural gas, we decrease the amount of electricity generated from natural gas, and that increases greenhouse gas emissions. So, that's pretty clear. We're responsible for 60% of the reduction in greenhouse gas that comes from the electricity sector over the last more than a decade now. And we've done more than wind and solar combined to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So we've got a great record, and we're part of the energy mix well into 2050. So denying that reality only serves to increase U.S. greenhouse gas emissions.
Great.
I'd also like to add, as you may know, the United States is only, in terms of its carbon footprint, is contributing about 11% of the emissions today. So what about the other 89% of the emissions and where it's coming from? We have to be clear-headed about what developing nations will and will not do. They're going to go for the lowest cost kind of fuel source. So if that's coal, they're going to go to coal. It's just a fact of the matter. It's developing. It's the difference between having energy and not having energy. You're going to get it any way you can. So why shouldn't the United States and its innovations be exporting that innovation overseas to lower emissions? It's just common sense. And then second, with regard to minerals and mining them here, all these technologies, these new technologies we're talking about, right down from your cell phone, but really for the energy production of solar or wind or battery storage, EVs, others, all require critical minerals. We have them here in the United States. We're not mining them in the United States, and this administration continues to want to export that responsibility and some kind of form of colonialism. It does not make sense. Again, there's no strategic direction from this administration.